Something inside your mind is sabotaging your life right now, and the most unsettling part is that you don't even notice it. Have you ever asked yourself why you keep repeating the same mistakes, even when you know you shouldn't? Why simple decisions somehow become impossible obstacles? The answer lies in a place you almost never dare to look: your shadow. Carl Jung described this shadow as the hidden side of the human mind, the part of yourself that you repress, ignore, or even outright reject. Yet despite your efforts to bury it, this shadow continues to pull the strings from the darkness. It is silent, but incredibly powerful. It's made of fears you don't want to admit you have, unresolved traumas you've tried to forget, resentments you refuse to feel, and desires you've convinced yourself don't exist. Every destructive habit, every failed relationship, every opportunity you've let slip away, they are all shaped by this invisible force. And here's the painful truth: the more you deny it, the stronger it becomes. The more you push it into the background, the more control it has over you. It works behind the scenes, undermining your choices, blocking your growth, and sabotaging your potential without you realizing it. Let me ask you something powerful. How many times have you felt stuck without knowing why? How many times have you felt as though the world was conspiring against you, when in reality, it was your own mind erecting invisible walls around you? That's your shadow at work. Today, you're going to uncover how this hidden side of your psyche might be ruining your life. You'll learn the signs it leaves behind in your decisions, the fingerprints it leaves on your patterns, and, most importantly, how to transform this destructive force into a source of strength. Pause for a second and reflect. Leave a comment below if you've ever caught yourself sabotaging your own progress without even realizing it. Writing it down not only helps you recognize the truth about your own mind, but it also encourages other people to reflect, and it pushes this video to reach more people who need this message. Imagine this: every frustration, every repeated mistake, every sensation of being stuck is not random. It's not bad luck. It's a signal from your shadow. Ignoring it means staying trapped in a cycle that never ends. Facing it, on the other hand, means taking the very first step toward breaking free, toward unlocking the potential you've always had but could never fully access. In this video, we're going to look deeply at the undeniable signs that your shadow is in control of your decisions. We're going to reveal the hidden patterns that block your evolution, and you'll discover practical strategies to recognize, confront, and ultimately integrate your shadow. Because only when you integrate it, rather than deny it, can you transform it from a force of sabotage into a force of power. This is not just another empty self-help video filled with cliches. This is a direct, grounded guide, rooted in Jung's psychology and supported by modern insights, designed to help you understand what's really happening inside your own mind. This is about equipping you with the awareness and the tools to stop sabotaging yourself once and for all. If you truly want to change your life, if you're serious about evolving, then stay with me until the very end. Every single insight you're about to hear can act as a weapon against the invisible sabotage that has been holding you back your entire life. Let me ask you again, did you know that your shadow leaves clear, unmistakable marks on your life, even if you never realized it? These patterns aren't coincidences. They're warnings, they're signals flashing like red lights, telling you that something within you is quietly derailing your journey. Ignoring these signs doesn't make them go away. It only guarantees that you'll keep repeating the same frustrations over and over again. The first undeniable sign is the repetition of negative patterns. Think about it. You try to change, you push yourself to do better, but somehow you always end up back where you started. the relationships that crumble in the same way, the choices that never deliver the results you hoped for, the constant replay of disappointments. That's not fate. That's not coincidence. That is your shadow, working in silence to keep control, even when that control destroys the very life you're trying to build. The second sign is excessive. Fear or procrastination. And this one is brutal. The very things you want the most in life, the dreams that would completely transform your future, are often the exact things you avoid the most. You tell yourself you'll do it tomorrow, or when the timing feels right. But deep down, you know the truth. It's the shadow holding you back. Because every step toward growth threatens the illusion of control it's created inside you. The shadow whispers excuses. It convinces you to wait. And with every delay, another opportunity slips through your fingers. And here's the terrifying reality. Unless you face it, your shadow will continue to shape your choices, your relationships, and your future. But the moment you bring it into the light, the moment you confront it and stop pretending it doesn't exist, that's when everything changes. That's when the hidden enemy becomes your greatest ally. So stay with me, because what you're about to uncover might just be the turning point you've been waiting for your entire life. Your shadow fears change. It prefers that you remain in your comfort zone, even if that zone feels frustrating, unfulfilling, and stagnant. Why? Because as long as you stay there, nothing threatens to transform your reality, and the shadow thrives on keeping things exactly as they are. The third undeniable sign of your shadow at work is harsh self-criticism. If your inner voice constantly whispers or shouts things like, "I'm not good enough, I'll never make it, this will never work out," those words don't appear out of nowhere. They are echoes of your shadow. Echoes of old wounds and insecurities that have never been healed. Every time you internalize those thoughts, every time you let them guide your choices, your shadow grows stronger. It robs you of confidence, it clouds your clarity, and it keeps you from stepping boldly into the life you want to create. The fourth sign is the endless cycle of conflict with the people around you. Do you notice that you often clash with the same types of people over the same types of issues, or that your relationships seem to repeat the same frustrating patterns again and again? Jung explained that this is projection. The very aspects of yourself that you reject are reflected back to you in the behavior of others. When you can't accept something in yourself, you will inevitably see it in the people closest to you, and it will trigger conflict. These fights, these misunderstandings, these repetitive arguments, they are not coincidences. They are mirrors showing you pieces of your shadow that you've refused to acknowledge. The fifth sign, one that almost no one talks about, is the inability to celebrate your own victories. Think about it. How many times have you achieved something important, something you worked hard for, only to feel emptiness instead of joy? Or to immediately question yourself, downplay your success, or feel a strange sense of guilt for winning? That's your shadow too. It quietly minimizes your accomplishments, because if you truly embraced your own greatness, the shadow would lose its power to keep you small. Pause with me here. Which of these signs do you recognize in yourself? Be honest. Comment below which one feels most familiar to your life. Sharing your truth not only helps you connect with this message, it also sparks reflection in others who are going through the same struggle. And every comment makes this conversation grow stronger, reaching more people who need to hear it. Recognizing these signs is the very first step toward reclaiming control of your own mind. To ignore your shadow is to walk through life in the dark without a flashlight. You trip over the same obstacles again and again, without ever understanding why. But the moment you begin to notice the patterns, it's like switching on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, you see what was always there. Suddenly, you realize that the obstacles weren't random at all. They were signs. And with awareness comes The power to choose differently. Imagine this. You're about to invest in something that could change your life, but a heavy, persistent doubt rises inside of you, and you step back at the last second. Or picture yourself in an important meeting where you have the chance to express your ideas, but instead you feel an irrational fear that ties your tongue. These aren't just moments of bad luck or random nerves. These are your shadow surfacing, stealing opportunities before you can even grasp them. Every time it happens, your life shifts slightly. One choice here, one silence there. And over time, those little sabotages create a future that feels smaller than the one you were meant to live. Recognizing these moments in real time is essential, because the shadow's power comes from invisibility. When you name it, when you see it for what it is, the spell is broken. You reclaim the choice. And once you do that consistently, you stop repeating the same destructive cycle. In the next blocks, we're going to dive even deeper. You'll see how the shadow influences your decisions, your opportunities, and your relationships in ways you might never have noticed before. We'll explore practical examples and clear strategies to not just resist the shadow, but to actually transform it. Because the truth is, your shadow doesn't have to remain your enemy. When integrated, it can become your most powerful ally. But before we go further, I need you to reflect on this question. Have you ever felt that no matter how hard you try, certain opportunities just slip through your hands? That important decisions suddenly feel like mountains you can't climb? That some invisible force is always pulling you back whenever you try to move forward? That's not random. That's not fate. That is your shadow, acting quietly but consistently in your life. Think about how it shows up in your everyday decisions. It might be something as small as avoiding a social invitation that could lead to a meaningful connection, or staying silent in a meeting where your idea could have opened a door, or hesitating to invest in yourself, even though you know it could change your future. These aren't isolated moments. They are patterns, and those patterns are the fingerprints of your shadow. And here's the key: once you start to see these fingerprints, you'll never unsee them. And that's when real transformation begins. Have you ever wondered why you hesitate right before taking action on something that could change your life? Or why you procrastinate on important tasks, delaying opportunities that could open doors to an entirely new future? Or perhaps you've made impulsive decisions that felt right in the moment, but later left you with frustration or regret. None of this is random. All of it is your shadow, silently working behind the scenes. One of the most dangerous ways the shadow operates is through emotional self-sabotage. You know that strange discomfort you sometimes feel right before acting, as if a quiet voice inside whispers, "Don't do it, it's dangerous." That voice is rarely wisdom. It is often your shadow. It's the projection of old insecurities you've buried deep, fears you've never faced, and unresolved traumas that linger in your unconscious. And even though you may not want to hear it, that voice has been steering your decisions for years. The shadow doesn't just shape how you feel about opportunities, it shapes the people you attract and the relationships you build. If you notice a pattern of always choosing partners who hurt you, or if the right opportunities always seem to slip through your fingers, it's not just bad luck. It's not fate conspiring against you. It's the shadow repeating the same scripts you've never had the courage to rewrite. It's as if your unconscious mind is constantly testing you, pulling the strings from behind the curtain and keeping you locked into the same cycle over and over again. Stop for a moment and reflect. How many times have you felt paralyzed by fear right before doing something important? How many times have you felt blocked, unable to move forward, even when you knew it was the right path? Share your experience in the comments below. When you write it down, you begin to recognize the hidden patterns, and at the same time, your comment helps this video reach more people who desperately need this message. Here's the empowering truth. Recognizing the shadow is power. The moment you begin to see how it influences your decisions, you gain the ability to interrupt the cycle. You take back the pen that has been writing the same story on repeat. You begin to turn missed opportunities into real achievements. You step out of the role of passive observer and into the role of the true protagonist of your own life. And here's the warning. The longer you ignore your shadow, the more control it takes. Every time you refuse to confront it, every time you dismiss the signals, it grows stronger. The shadow doesn't disappear when ignored. It feeds on your denial, and eventually it decides for you. Think carefully about this. Have you ever felt that no matter how hard you try, certain opportunities just slip away? That important decisions somehow morph into obstacles, as if the universe itself were pushing against you, that some invisible force is holding you back, preventing you from stepping into the life you want. That force is not laziness, it's not bad luck, it's not coincidence, it's your shadow, quietly shaping your life from the inside. The truth is, the shadow influences every single choice you make, even the small ones you don't notice. Deciding whether or not to accept a simple invitation, speaking up in a meeting, taking a risk on an idea, reaching out to someone who could change the trajectory of your journey. These tiny choices seem insignificant, but they're often the ones most sabotaged by your unconscious patterns. Each hesitation, each silence, each avoidance builds a chain that keeps you tethered to the same reality. These invisible habits are like hidden programming inside your mind, old codes written long ago, shaping your behavior without your conscious consent. And until you rewrite those codes, they will continue to dictate your life. That's why you feel fear when you should feel excitement. That's why you procrastinate when you should take bold action. That's why you sometimes make impulsive choices that later leave you questioning your own judgment. None of it is random. It's your shadow orchestrating outcomes that ensure you remain trapped. And the cruel trick of the shadow is that it convinces you these patterns are simply who you are. But they're not. They are learned defenses. They are scars disguised as truths. They are wounds that were never healed, now playing out as invisible barriers in your present life. Emotional self-sabotage is another brutal expression of the shadow's control. Think about how many times you felt an unexplainable wave of doubt right before doing something important. You tell yourself it's intuition, but deep down you know it's fear masquerading as wisdom. That doubt is the shadow in disguise, and every time you obey it, you reinforce its power. This is why it feels like you keep circling the same ground in life, because the shadow ensures you never break free of the loop. The moment you step toward change, it whispers, "Don't do it. Stay safe. Play small." And if you listen, you step back into the prison you've lived in all along. But here's the shift. Once you become aware of these patterns, everything changes. Awareness is the light that burns away the illusions of the shadow. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And once you name it, you strip it of its control. In the upcoming sections, we're going to explore not just the destructive effects of the shadow, but also practical strategies for integrating it. Because the shadow isn't only darkness. Hidden within it are the very traits, strengths, and passions you've denied yourself. The key is to stop running from it and start using it, to transform what has been sabotaging you into what empowers you. This is your moment to choose. Ignore the shadow, and it will keep making decisions for you. Confront it, and you reclaim the freedom to shape your own destiny. Have you ever noticed that just before taking an important step, a strange wave of discomfort, doubt, or unease rises inside you? It feels like an inner voice, Whispering, "Don't do it. It's dangerous." That voice might seem protective, but in reality, it's often an illusion, a projection of insecurities you've repressed, fears you've never confronted, and old traumas you've never integrated. And here's the paradox. Every time you ignore that voice or try to rationalize it away, it doesn't weaken. It grows stronger. It feeds on your hesitation, and it continues to quietly dictate your choices. Your shadow doesn't only shape your thoughts, it deeply influences how you approach relationships and opportunities. Think about it. If you constantly find yourself surrounded by people who drain you, mistreat you, or pull you into unhealthy patterns, whether in friendship, love, or work, it's not just the world being cruel. That repetition is a signal. It's your shadow revealing patterns you haven't yet recognized, opportunities that vanish before they even begin, relationships that replay the same toxic scripts. These are not coincidences. They're the shadow maintaining control, testing you and sabotaging your growth. And here's the crucial part. This doesn't only happen in the big, life-changing decisions. The shadow shows up in the smallest, most ordinary choices of your daily life. In what you choose to say or not say, in how you react to criticism, in whether you take action or stay silent. The shadow can be the fear that keeps you from speaking the truth, the hesitation that stops you from taking a risk that could lead to real growth, or that relentless, exaggerated self-criticism that convinces you not to even try. Pause for a moment and reflect with me. How many times have you felt fear, doubt, or hesitation right before acting on something that mattered? How many times have you pulled back, held yourself back, even when you knew you had the chance to achieve something extraordinary? Write it down in the comments. Share your experience. By naming these moments, you begin to notice the invisible patterns running through your life. And beyond that, your comment helps this message reach others, people who are living the same struggle but don't yet have the words to describe it. Here's the good news. Recognizing these moments is pure power. Awareness is the first step to transformation. The moment you start seeing how your shadow operates, you gain the ability to intervene consciously. You can break the cycle. You can stop repeating the same frustrations and finally turn opportunities into real, lasting results. It's like switching on a light in a pitch-dark room. Suddenly you see the obstacles that were always there but hidden. And when you see them, you can move forward with clarity. Stay with me, because this journey doesn't stop at awareness. In the upcoming sections, we'll explore practical strategies, concrete ways to confront your shadow and transform it into strength. You'll see examples of how to integrate it positively into your life, instead of letting it sabotage you. Because here's the truth. The more you ignore your shadow, the more it decides for you. But the moment you take responsibility, the moment you look it in the eye, you reclaim control over your life. Think about this. The shadow isn't only active in big turning points. It's present in the most ordinary, everyday moments, in the conversations you avoid, in the invitations you decline, in the ideas you silence before they ever see the light. You might not notice it, but the shadow is quietly woven into everything you do or don't do. It doesn't need dramatic events to take control. It infiltrates silently, invisibly, shaping your future without your awareness. Picture a simple, relatable moment. You come up with an amazing idea for a project, something that could really make a difference, but before you even take the first step, a sudden doubt creeps in. What if it fails? What if I'm not ready? What if people don't like it? And just like that, you procrastinate. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow or next week, or when you have more time. But deep down, you know what really happened. Your shadow whispered and you listened. Or maybe you've had a chance to speak up, to express your truth in a meeting, in a relationship, or in a conversation that mattered. But instead of saying what you needed to say, you held back. You felt the words rising inside you, but fear shut them down before they left your lips. Later, you replay the moment in your mind, regretting your silence. That wasn't just shyness. That was the shadow deciding for you. And here's the trap. The shadow is clever. It convinces you that your hesitation is rational. It tells you that waiting is wise, that silence is safe, that doubt is caution. But in reality, it's a disguise. It's fear dressed up as logic. It's old wounds pretending to be wisdom, and unless you recognize it, you will keep obeying it, thinking you're making reasonable choices, when in fact, you're just staying stuck in the same cycle. But the moment you see it, for what it really is, the game changes. That's when you realize you've been negotiating with a ghost made of your past fears and repressed parts of yourself. And once you call it by its name, the shadow, it loses its grip. This is your wake-up call. You don't have to keep living in cycles you didn't choose. You don't have to keep letting your shadow dictate the terms of your life. Recognizing it, naming it, and confronting it is the doorway to freedom. There's a moment we all know too. Well, you have an idea, a spark of inspiration that feels powerful, full of potential, but then hesitation creeps in. A whisper in your mind tells you, it's not the right time. You're not ready. What if it doesn't work? You postpone, you stall, you convince yourself that waiting is the smart choice. Months later, you watch someone else bring that very same idea to life and succeed with it. And deep down, you know you could have been the one. That wasn't bad luck. That wasn't coincidence. That was the shadow at work, holding you back from risk, from growth, from opportunity. The shadow doesn't just influence your ideas, it shapes your relationships too. Have you ever noticed how you seem to attract the same type of person over and over again? Maybe someone who hurts you, who undervalues you, or who mirrors old wounds you thought you had left behind. Jung taught that the shadow projects itself onto others. What we refuse to face within ourselves, we end up seeing reflected in the people around us. That's why you keep entering the same cycles of disappointment, of heartbreak, of unfulfilling connections. Without realizing it, your unconscious is recreating relationships that echo your insecurities and your unhealed traumas. And it doesn't stop there. Think about your career, your workplace, your ambitions. There comes a moment where the spotlight is open, where you could speak up with your idea, step into leadership, or put yourself forward for a promotion. But then, hesitation tightens its grip. The voice of self-doubt silences you before you even try. You stay quiet, you shrink back, and you let someone else take the opportunity. Again, that's not just fear. That's the shadow, working against you, sabotaging your confidence, keeping you in the comfort zone where you feel safe, but never truly alive. And here's something even more subtle. Sometimes the shadow reveals itself not in failure, but in victory. You finally achieve something meaningful, a goal you've been chasing, a recognition you've been waiting for, but instead of feeling joy, you feel empty, guilty, doubtful. Instead of celebrating, you minimize yourself. You tell yourself it wasn't enough or that you don't deserve it. This is one of the most dangerous disguises of the shadow. It steals satisfaction from your hands, even when you've done everything right. It robs you of the ability to truly own your success. The shadow also hides in everyday conflicts. That argument you had with a friend, the irritation with a family member, the tension with a co-worker. It's rarely just about what's on the surface. More often, it's your unacknowledged fears, insecurities, and old resentments projecting themselves into the moment. Jung reminded us that the shadow is everything within us that we refuse to integrate. Every thought you suppress, every emotion you deny, every behavior you reject, it all gathers in the shadow, and when triggered, it explodes in ways that feel out of proportion. That sudden outburst, that unreasonable irritation, that impulsive reaction. Each one is a message from the shadow. I'm still here. You still haven't faced me. Now, pause and reflect. How many of these examples have you lived yourself? Can you remember a time, maybe even recently, when the shadow clearly got in your way? Share it below in the comments. That reflection not only helps you bring these patterns into the light, but it also helps this message reach more people who desperately need it. When you comment, you aren't just telling your story, you're helping others recognize themselves in it. And here's the turning point. Identifying the shadow in your daily life is the first, most essential step toward transforming it into an ally. Because once you see it, you're no longer blind to it. You stop believing you're simply a victim of chance, of luck, of external circumstances. You realize that there are forces inside you, forces that can be understood, confronted, and ultimately transformed. That realization changes everything. You stop waiting for life to happen to you. You step into your role as the one steering your own path. This is where true empowerment begins. Once you recognize that your procrastination, your patterns in relationships, your hesitation at work, your self-doubt even in victory, all of it has roots in the shadow, you can start to act differently. You can break cycles. You can claim opportunities. You can start creating the life that has always been within your reach. And that's exactly where we're heading. In the next blocks, we'll go deeper. We'll explore not just how to recognize the shadow, but how to integrate it, how to transform those sabotaging patterns into sources of strength, how to use this understanding to evolve consciously, shifting behaviors that may have held you back for years. Because here's the truth. The shadow doesn't vanish by ignoring it. The more you push it away, the more it controls you. But when you face it, when you integrate it, you don't just weaken it, you turn it into a source of wisdom and growth. This is the moment to stop letting your unconscious dictate your life. This is the moment to choose awareness, to choose responsibility, to choose yourself. Stay with me. The journey is just beginning. There are moments in life when an emotion strikes you out of nowhere. A sudden heaviness, an unexplained sadness, a surge of anxiety that doesn't seem tied to anything specific. Or perhaps an impulse to avoid situations that deep down you know could change your life. These aren't random accidents of emotion. They are signals. They are the hidden fingerprints of the shadow, the concealed part of your psyche quietly shaping the way you think, feel, and act. Picture this. You're standing on the edge of a major decision. A new career path opens up, a chance to connect with someone who could bring meaning into your life, an opportunity to invest in a bold, innovative idea. Rationally, you know this could be a turning point, but then, almost instantly, an overwhelming wave of doubt rises within you. Fear grips your chest. You tell yourself, it doesn't feel right. Maybe later, maybe never. That paralysis doesn't come from reason. It comes from the shadow. It is your unconscious clinging to the familiar, even if that familiar space has kept you trapped, unfulfilled, and far away from your potential. The shadow resists change because change threatens its control. It's not only in life's big crossroads where the shadow shows itself, it's also in the subtle, everyday emotions you can't explain. That sudden irritation that flares up in a harmless conversation, that unexpected sadness that lingers even when everything seems fine, that random fear that seizes you in a moment that doesn't justify it. These emotional storms are not coincidences. They are echoes, residues of unresolved trauma, of old resentment, of limiting beliefs buried deep within you. The shadow is like an invisible hand pressing buttons you didn't even know you had. It reacts for you, it decides for you. It makes you feel as though life is just happening to you instead of flowing through you. And what about the small decisions, the ones you think don't matter? That hesitation to speak your truth, that choice to avoid conflict even when silence hurts you more, that tendency to hold back right at the moment when success is within reach. Each of those tiny choices is a reflection of something deeper. The shadow thrives in those subtle moments, and the cost of each silent retreat, each missed opportunity, builds up over time. Slowly, invisibly, it shapes the trajectory of your future. But here's the part most people never realize. The shadow doesn't only interfere when you're trying to rise, it interferes even when you succeed. Think about the times you've achieved something you worked hard for, a milestone, a victory, a recognition. But instead of joy, you felt guilt, discomfort, or an uneasy voice saying, "You don't deserve this, you're not good enough, it was just luck." That's the shadow again, dimming your light from within. This is perhaps its most insidious trick. It convinces you to doubt your own worth at the very moment you should be celebrating it. The shadow creates invisible chains, locking you into patterns you don't even realize you're repeating. That is why recognizing it is not just helpful, it's essential. Awareness is the first crack in the armor of the unconscious. The moment you begin to see how the shadow influences your emotions, your relationships, and your choices, you step into a new kind of freedom. Suddenly, you are no longer reacting blindly. You begin to respond with clarity. Instead of being hijacked by fear, you can pause and say, "This is the shadow speaking, this is not who I truly am." Imagine how powerful that shift could be. You feel the familiar surge of doubt before taking a leap. But instead of obeying it, you see it for what it is. An echo of old fears, not a reflection of your present capacity. You feel the irritation rising in a small disagreement, but instead of exploding or withdrawing, you pause and realize it's not about this moment. It's about something deeper being triggered. That awareness gives you choice, and choice is power. The truth is, the shadow doesn't disappear just because you recognize it. It doesn't evaporate into thin air. But recognition transforms your relationship with it. You stop mistaking its voice for your own. You stop surrendering to its invisible grip. And slowly, with each conscious decision, you begin to rewire your patterns. Think about how different your life could be if, every time fear, doubt, or unexplained emotion showed up, you could pause and say, "This is the shadow, I see it. I won't let it decide for me." That awareness alone turns a hidden enemy into a visible teacher. The shadow becomes less about sabotage and more about revelation. Each trigger becomes an opportunity to ask, what is this trying to show me? What part of myself have I neglected, denied, or buried? This is the essence of transformation. The shadow isn't here to destroy you. It's here to guide you into the depths of yourself, to point toward the wounds that need healing, to highlight the parts of you that are still waiting for integration. The discomfort you feel is not punishment. It's information. It's direction. And if you learn to read it, to listen without surrendering, you gain a compass that will lead you toward a more authentic life. So as you move forward in this journey, stay alert. Notice the unexplained moods, the irrational fears, the sudden urges to withdraw or procrastinate. Notice when victories feel strangely hollow, or when opportunities slip through your hands because of hesitation. Every single one of those moments is the shadow at work. And every single one of those moments is a chance for you to claim back your power. From here on, the question is no longer whether the shadow exists. You already know it does. The real question is, how will you respond to it? Will you let it quietly rule your life from the dark? Or will you shine a light on it, learn from it, and transform it into a source of strength? Because here's the liberating truth. The shadow doesn't have to be your enemy. It can become your greatest ally if you dare to face it. Confidence and fulfillment. These two words take on a whole new meaning when you understand that even the darkest parts of your psyche can be transformed into power. Once you recognize how the shadow influences your life, the essential question arises: how can you integrate it practically into your daily life? It is not enough to understand it intellectually. You must experience it, apply it, and practice it consistently. The first step is constant self-observation. Imagine that every intense emotion is a signal sent from your unconscious mind. When you feel fear, anger, jealousy, anxiety, or frustration, pause for a moment and ask yourself, where is this coming from? Do not blame yourself. Do not judge yourself. Simply observe. This small act of recognizing that your reaction is a manifestation of the shadow immediately opens space for conscious choice. You stop being controlled by automatic impulses and begin deciding how to respond deliberately. The second step is acceptance of uncomfortable emotions. Most people try to run from negative feelings, pushing them deep inside as if ignoring them would make them disappear. In reality, this only strengthens the shadow. When you welcome what arises, fear, doubt, resentment, sadness, you gain the ability to analyze its roots and convert paralyzing energy into learning. Every emotion, no matter how unpleasant it feels, contains a vital clue about hidden patterns that need to be transformed. The third step is examining repetitive patterns. Observe your life carefully. Which situations keep repeating? Relationships that always end the same way? Decisions that lead to the same impasse? Conflicts that seem cyclical? Ask yourself, what part of me is recreating this cycle? The shadow expresses itself precisely through these recurring patterns, and identifying them is like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, you begin to see the path where conscious and liberating action becomes possible. The fourth step is reclaiming repressed energy. Many traits you consider negative, ambition, assertiveness, the desire to stand out, are, in fact, misdirected sources of power. Jealousy can be transformed into motivation for growth. Anger can become determination to act. Anxiety can be channeled into focus and energy to move forward with clarity. When you harness these impulses, you realize that nothing within you is truly an enemy. It is merely energy that has been misapplied. A powerful practice to support this process is reflective writing. Keeping a journal where you record thoughts, emotions, and situations in which you notice the shadow at work creates a bridge between the unconscious and conscious mind. By putting your fears, doubts, and recurring patterns on paper, you start to see connections and causes that were previously invisible. What once felt obscure becomes clear, and the shadow stops being a dark weight, transforming into a roadmap for self-awareness. Another essential exercise is gradually confronting what. This may mean expressing your opinion in a conversation, making a risky decision, starting a new project, or addressing a conflict you've long postponed. Every small conscious action in this direction strengthens your sense that you are not at the mercy of the shadow. You prove to yourself that you can act despite fear, and that you do not need to remain trapped by old patterns. Finally, draw inspiration from real examples of transformation. Stories of people who have overcome their blocks, accounts of those who turned limitations into strength, and even the teachings of Jung, who stated that integrating the shadow is a direct path to authenticity, emotional freedom, and clarity of purpose, all show that it is possible to harness this hidden power. The more you practice these strategies, the more the shadow loses its power to silently manipulate your life. It stops being an obstacle and becomes fuel for your growth. With every conscious step, you move closer to your true essence, the part of you that does not fear looking inward, that does not run from itself, and that transforms even the darkest aspects into a source of strength, purpose, and personal evolution. And the shadow transforms into a tool for evolution. This journey does not happen overnight. It demands daily attention, courage to face uncomfortable aspects of yourself, and a committed effort to turn hidden patterns into conscious action. But the rewards are immense: clearer, more decisive choices, healthier relationships, tangible achievements, and a life lived with purpose and clarity. Have you noticed that the shadow is not just about fear, doubt, or negative patterns? It is also about untapped potential. Every repressed aspect of yourself, from ambition to the courage to stand out, contains energy that, when properly integrated, can be transformed into powerful decisions and actions. Imagine someone experiencing intense jealousy or competitiveness. Instead of being controlled by these emotions, they learn to channel them to overcome challenges, develop skills, or pursue personal growth. The energy that once caused conflict now drives meaningful achievements. What once limited them now expands their potential. This is the true power of a transformed shadow. Procrastination is another common example. Often it masks hidden fear, the fear of failure or of not meeting expectations. By recognizing this underlying cause, hesitation becomes an opportunity for strategic planning. Every moment of doubt can now be analyzed, prepared for, and transformed into decisive action. The shadow stops being a barrier and becomes a silent guide for conscious, intentional choices. The shadow also shapes the way you communicate and assert yourself. People who have historically avoided expressing their opinions or confronting conflicts can integrate these aspects and learn to speak with confidence and clarity. The energy that once generated fear of judgment or rejection can now be used to lead, influence, and create a positive impact in relationships, workplaces, and social environments. An essential element of shadow work is the transformation of trauma and unresolved resentment. Every unhealed emotional wound carries latent energy that can be converted into strength. By facing past memories, grievances, or fears, you build resilience, clarity, and the capacity to act strategically in future situations. The shadow becomes like an internal battery of concentrated energy, ready to propel you toward achievement. Integrating the shadow also allows for bolder, more deliberate decisions. By understanding your limits, self-sabotaging patterns, and hidden fears, you prepare yourself to act with precision rather than being guided by unconscious impulses. Every decision becomes conscious, intentional, and aligned with your goals, turning fear into strength, doubt into strategy, and blockage into action. Shadow integration also strengthens creativity and innovation. Many suppressed talents, ideas once thought impossible, or forgotten aspirations can emerge when you face yourself without denial. Every insight or creative impulse that was previously blocked by self-criticism or fear can now be harnessed to solve problems, create opportunities, and generate meaningful results. In essence, the shadow, once integrated, stops being an obstacle. It becomes a source of energy, wisdom, and personal power. What once limited you now expands your abilities. Fear, doubt, and hesitation are no longer shackles. They are guides, signals, and fuel for deliberate growth and transformation. Concrete results. Jung taught that integrating the shadow is not optional for those seeking fulfillment. It is essential. Confronting the hidden aspects of your psyche unlocks not only inner power, but also clarity, authenticity, and emotional freedom. Every conscious step toward integration transforms old patterns into strategic decisions, repressed emotions into useful energy, and perceived limitations into real opportunities. This daily practice, observing, accepting, analyzing, and channeling, turns the shadow from an invisible obstacle into a tangible ally. It stops controlling your choices and begins providing precise insights about yourself, allowing you to act with greater intelligence, Kura. We arrive now at a crucial point. You understand that the shadow is not something to fear, but a powerful source of self-knowledge, strength, and transformation. Everything we've discussed so far, from how the shadow influences decisions, emotions, and repetitive patterns, to how it can be transformed into action and potential, converges to a central truth. The more you ignore your shadow, the more it decides for you. The more you understand it, the more you decide your own life. Take a moment to reflect. How many opportunities were lost to fear, doubt, or insecurity? How many times have you felt blocked in the face of important decisions or refrained from acting because of a feeling you couldn't explain? All of this originates from the shadow, acting silently, invisibly, yet wielding real power over your choices and emotions. Here is the difference. Now you are aware. Recognizing the shadow is like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, you see what was hidden, perceive the patterns, understand them, and can begin to act with clarity. Every fear, every doubt, every negative emotion ceases to be an enemy and becomes a clue about yourself, providing valuable information on how to move forward. Integrating the shadow means taking full responsibility for your life. It means stopping the blame towards circumstances, other people, or fate for your blocks and frustrations. Every pattern you recognize, every emotion you accept, every impulse you transform becomes a tool to create real opportunities, make more assertive decisions, and build authentic relationships. Moreover, by turning the shadow into an ally, you unlock hidden potential, suppressed talents, undiscovered ambitions, forgotten creativity, and energy that was previously wasted on fear or self-criticism. This energy now fuels action, innovation, overcoming challenges, and achieving goals that once seemed impossible. It is like converting what seemed negative into pure fuel for personal growth and success. The shadow also strengthens courage. Every time you confront a fear or repressed emotion, you become more resilient. Each pattern you identify and transform increases your capacity to make strategic decisions and act consciously. You begin to realize that nothing inside you is inherently limiting. It is all potential waiting to be harnessed. This is the essence of conscious evolution. Understanding, integrating, and channeling the shadow transforms your internal obstacles into a dynamic force that guides, empowers, and propels you toward a life of mastery, freedom, and authentic fulfillment.